Hello, welcome everyone to The Price of Tomorrow. And this is a financial wellness festival that's presented by OCBC. And we're going to be really delving into the question of what if we fail to retire, right? The real anxieties of the 50s. Those of us who are not born in the 50s, but those of us who are already in our 50s or just coming to that particular stage of life. And this also happens to be a Leong Form takeover podcast episode. And I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Stanley Leong. I'm one half of the Leong brothers, together with my brother Hosean. We co-host and produce and present the Leong Form podcast. And we're happy to be part of this event today. I was formerly also with MediaCorp, last with CNA 938 as a news presenter on radio until last year. So that's a little bit of my background. I'll be very shortly also introducing our guest panelists to you today. But just before I do, I'd just like a show of hands, all right? Just a little bit of arm exercise here. How many of us are in our 50s already? Okay, how many of us are, keep it up. How many of us are nearing 50s? Okay, more. All right, how many of us think we will get to 50? Okay, good. I like the positive attitude. Now, the other thing about getting to the 50s and planning for retirement is that sometimes things just don't work out the way we hope and plan for it too. And this is where, we may be having a lot of plans right down to the T, but things don't materialize as we wish and hope it would be. So this is where our panelists come into the picture, because I think they might have a little bit more of a clearer crystal ball in front of them that will help guide us, I suppose, through this particular episode and season of anxiety that some of us may be in, or some of us may be trying to avoid as we near our 50s and over. To my left, we have Pei Yen. And she is a group director of CPF Board's Communications and Engagement Group. She leads their team in shaping and implementing the board's communication strategy in order to engage CPF members like ourselves. And joining me also to the left in the black jacket is Alex Lee. He is an independent actuarial consultant. He has over 20 years of experience in the financial services and financial services sector. He's also a current president of the Singapore Actuarial Society. He was formerly with former regulator and also former CFO and chief actuary of a local insurance company. And he'll be speaking today from his personal capacity. And furthest from me, we have Timothy Liu. He is head of investments at OCBC. And Timothy has over 15 years of experience in the financial industry and also is passionate about advocating for financial literacy as well as retirement planning for all. Hence, he is in the hot seat today to help us get through this particular discussion. So let's find out from our guests, from your perspectives, what are perhaps the biggest misconceptions that people in this age group have about financial preparedness? Shall we start with the lady?
Okay, hi. Hello, everybody. So the greatest misperception that we have seen is that members tend to think that 50s is too late for planning, and therefore there's no point in doing anything about it at all. So from the financial perspective, it is often said that the ideal window for planning is between 40s and 50s, because that is also when, the power of compounding can take place most effectively. But while, the best time might have been yesterday, the next best time is to plan today. Right? So people are living longer. So about 1 in 2 Singaporeans aged 65 today are expected to live beyond age 86. So for somebody who is 50 years old, that's like, a 30 over plus years ahead of us. So that's a very long time, and there's a lot of things we can do to ensure that we retire well. So the important thing to take away today is that it is important to plan, and it's never too late to plan.
Thank you. There's some hope for us who are a little bit 50s and upwards. Alex, total agreement with that?
Yes, and I think the other misperception is that you often thought that the mix of spending in your life may stay pretty constant during your through your retirement age, but is quite far from the truth, because according to MOH statistics, right, the rate of increase of hospital admission before age 65 is around 4% per annum. After that, 6% per annum it increases. And also your length of stay in hospital also tend to double after retirement. So just by the pure process of aging, you should expect your medical expense to sort of double every 10 years, even without inflation. So with adding inflation, you should expect your medical expense to double every 5 years. And in addition, as what Ian just mentioned, that you have a good 30 years ahead of you. 30 years, you can imagine how many of your aircon, TV, fridge in your home can break down, right? And also as you age, if you have stairs in your house, you may not be able to climb them anymore. You may have to move somewhere, retrofit different stuff, anti-slip floor and things like that. Have you planned for those additional capital expenditure into your retirement? I think that should be taken care of.
I didn't think about the healthcare costs as well and the longer length of stays that we might need in hospital. Thanks for that reminder. Timothy.
Yeah, maybe just expanding on what Alex just said, right? I think a lot of people think that when they retire, they actually can cut their expenses. So I talk to many clients and I always ask them, essentially, when you retire, how do you know you have enough? And they always say, oh, I can just cut back my expenses by 50% and I know I have enough. But that's a common misperception because ultimately, like what Alex said, healthcare costs will rise. I mean, it's just biology. Trips to doctors, your specialists and everything, that's more expensive. And you also need to basically renovate your home whenever to put in like the disability bars and stuff like that. So what we always advise clients is plan your post-retirement expenses to be the same as your pre-retirement expenses. And that way, if you are able to lower your lifestyle, that's great. But if you cannot, then essentially at least you have enough. And I think the second aspect of it is that when you retire, you have a lot of free time on your hands and you want to do stuff, all the stuff that you couldn't do when you're younger, when you're working, spending 60% of your time working. And so all this costs money. So that's why I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions where people always say, oh, I can cut 50%. It's not so simple. That trip to Japan, your trip to Europe, if you still want to drive post-retirement, essentially all this costs a lot of money and you need to plan for it.
Right? Everything is needed really to plan and make sure you have your calculator on hand as well. But really the question then would be, how much is enough for retirement? Is there a magic number that we can pluck out from the air and say, yep, I need 1,000 a month? Okay, maybe not in Singapore terms, but 3,000 a month, is that sufficient? How do we know what's enough for us for our retirement? Maybe we'll start with Tim.
Yeah, sure. I think for everybody, it's different. Since we are all at OCBC, we have OCBC Life Goals. You can go inside the app and basically calculate how much you need for retirement. But to a large extent, there's always the base, thanks to CPF Life, of course. But I think for many Singaporeans, that's just a very basic lifestyle that you can lead. But obviously, if you want trips to Europe, some of you might like to travel in business class, and then all of this basically adds up. So retirement is actually quite a long period. I would like to think it's 30 years, but I think maybe for me it's 20 years, but okay, so but we see, right? But during this long period, essentially you just need to factor in inflation costs. And if you're looking at, let's say, $5,000 a month for 20 years, you should have a ballpark of about $1 million in terms of your savings for retirement.
Alex?
According to the Department of Stats, right? So if you live to 65 years old, you can expect to live for another 20 years, so to 85. The rule of thumb I would use is, okay, you take 85 minus your current age, and taking what Tim said, that you can sort of expect your spending level to be about the same. So you multiply your annual expenditure by that 85 minus your current age. That should be a starting point. And then after that, adjust that number up and down based on your ability to earn for your assets to grow at a rate that can meet inflation. If you are sort of less savvy in investment, then maybe you have to buffer a bit more before you can retire. Otherwise, if you have good financial advice, able to access many good investment opportunities, then okay, maybe you can go with a bit less. Yeah.
Yeah, and earlier also Tim mentioned about the CPF website, which I think is really helpful. So Ian, tell us more about what is enough.
Okay, sure. So I echo, what Timothy and Alex has mentioned. What is enough? I mean, really, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. So it varies from person to person. How you can answer the question yourself is perhaps to think about what your retirement will look like. So, I think Tim alluded to it. Think about, in terms of food, for example, where will you be getting your food? Is it largely home cooked? Will you go to the food courts or hawker centers, or do you prefer restaurants? right? Then apart from that, also your transport. Do you drive? Do you take public transport? Or traveling, would you typically go to countries that are in Southeast Asia, or you'd like to travel further? So when you have a better idea of what your retirement looks like, you can then calculate your retirement expenses and then work backwards to see, how much you need to accumulate. So if all this, sounds very laborious, sounds very daunting to you, I'm happy to share, like what Stanley mentioned. CPF recently, we launched the plan with CPF. So that is a one-stop financial guidance platform to help make planning simple. So in there, you can find a suite of planners. You can find also a financial health questionnaire, as well as educational resources to help you to plan. Perhaps just to specifically mention that we have this retirement payout planner. So you can use that to project, your payout, your desired payout in retirement. So what you hope to achieve. And at the same time, the planner will also tell you, based on your current CPF balances, your current income, what is the payout you can expect to receive from CPF. And if there is a gap, the planner will recommend, how you can try to close the gap. Yeah. So if you have not tried it before, I encourage you to visit the CPF website.
Right. There wouldn't be like a red alarm that will be, flashing if you don't have enough in your CPF, right?
No. Yes.
But talking about CPF as well, tell us again as to how Singaporeans, perhaps in our 50s, thereabouts in that age group, how we can make the most of the different CPF schemes available.
Okay. All right. Perhaps to start from the fundamentals, we all know that working Singaporeans and their employers, they have to contribute to the CPF account. So these savings earn interest and grow. So for members below 55, you can earn up to 5% interest. And for members 55 and above, you can earn up to 6%. So apart, from these mandatory contributions, members can also voluntarily contribute to their CPF account. So we call this the retirement sum topping up scheme. So members below 55 can top up to the special account up to the full retirement sum. Today it is about 213,000. And members 55 and above, they can top up to the retirement account up to the enhanced retirement sum, which is today about $426,000. So these savings earned a base interest of 4%. And perhaps I could also have a show of hands, right? Is anybody familiar with the rule of 72? Yeah, I see a lot of nods. Yeah, so essentially, if you take 72 divided by the interest rate, okay, and you will get the number of years it takes for your balances to double. So based on the CPF interest rate of 4%, it will take about 18 years for your balances to double. So if you're 50 today, you top up a certain amount, and when you're about 68, you can see your balance double, and the payouts will also increase substantially. So it is really a good scheme for you to take advantage of to optimize your CPF savings. Maybe just one more point. On top of that, right, you also get to enjoy tax relief. So of up to 8,000 per year if you do a top up. And if you top up to your loved ones, that's another 8,000. So altogether, $16,000. So for working adults, I think this is also a very attractive feature of the scheme. Many Singaporeans, they are already topping up to optimize their CPF savings. And in fact, this year, we are seeing a record amount of top up. So if you have some spare cash on hand, I do encourage everybody to, like your fellow Singaporeans, also top up and benefit from the power of compounding.
Right. Top up for yourself, top up for your parents as well. That'll be a good thing. So some of us may also have used our CPF savings again, whether for housing or for our children's education. And then when we come to that stage where we're thinking about retirement, we go like, this is way lower than I thought I had planned for. So how? That will be the question. So how? What do we do?
Okay, I think the first thing I would say is don't panic. Yeah, so you actually have a lot more options than you think. So if you find that you're lacking a little bit behind in terms of your retirement savings, like I mentioned earlier, you can consider the retirement sum topping up scheme. Yeah, so that's one. The monies go to the special account or retirement account and earn 4% interest. Alternatively, you can also consider doing a voluntary housing refund. Because if you have already used your CPF for housing, you can voluntarily, refund the principal used plus the interest. So the difference is that the monies will go back to the ordinary account and you will earn a lower interest. But you have the flexibility to reuse it for your future housing payments, if any. And for older members, you can also consider unlocking your asset. Because, we know in Singaporeans, a lot of our resources tend to be tied up in properties, right? So you can explore, the housing monetization scheme to unlock the value of your asset and convert them into retirement income. So I can share two schemes, both administered by HDB. The first one is the Silver Housing Bonus. So for members 55 and above, if you find that we have reached a certain age, our children have moved out, and we don't need such a big house anymore, you can consider right sizing to a HDB 3-room flat or smaller. And when your sale proceeds, you can use it to top up your CPF retirement account to get higher payouts, and you can also get a cash bonus of up to $40,000. Yeah, that's quite considerable. Another scheme you can consider would be the lease buyback scheme, but this is for members 65 and above, so for our older fellow Singaporeans. So we all know that HDB flats come with a certain lease. Yeah, so you can consider selling part of the remaining lease back to HDB, get some sales proceeds, use it to top up part of it to top up your CPF account, and also get a cash bonus. Yeah, if maybe I could just use a very simple example to illustrate. Yeah, so for somebody who is, let's say, 70 years old today, and if you have a remaining lease of 50 years, I think it's unlikely that you will need such a long lease, because 70 plus 50 is 120 lah. Yeah. So but you can consider like selling maybe 20 years of the remaining lease back to HDB. So you still have 30 years, which can cover you up to 100 years old, and the remaining 20 years you sell back to HDB. You get a sum of money, use part of it to top up, and then get the lease buyback bonus. So what it means is that you have higher retirement payouts, you have a cash bonus, and at the same time you get to stay in the flat until 100 years old. So you can age in place. So there are benefits all around. And these are various ways that you can consider to boost your retirement income.
Thanks for sharing with us some of the CPF schemes and options there. Now, definitely, we all have money sitting in our banks as well. So let's move on to Timothy, and with some questions there for him about prudent investments as well, or saving strategies perhaps that people in their 50s can actually consider as we are approaching retirement. How would you advise us in terms of how we can preserve capital?
Okay, I think preserving capital is important, but essentially retirement is a very, very long runway, right? 20 to 30 years. And when we talk to clients, a lot of clients basically, once they retire, they switch their whole portfolio, equities, bonds, everything into time deposits. And basically that's a very, very conservative strategy. A lot of us do not realize that 30 years is a long time. There's still a lot of upside in equity markets, in bond markets. So for a balanced investor, when they retire, essentially the allocation should be 50% into fixed income, 50% into equities. And when I talk about 50% of equities, it's not 50% into Nvidia or Palantir or something that's very, very high volatility. I'm talking about a globally diversified equities portfolio consisting of both growth equities and value equities. And essentially the idea is to every 3 to 5 years after you retire, you shift some of that allocation in equities to fixed income. And so that's why how you build up a dividend strategy from your income book, and yet at the same time, you have participation in upside over the next 20 years.
So really planning for the longer term, not just sitting happy with our fixed deposits.
Yes, exactly.
Which I am part of doing that.
Which rates are going down also. So.
Yes, they're not definitely going up. All right. But, given that to be the case as well, I mean, we're also coming to that point where we're looking at, yes, we want to accumulate more wealth. At the same time, we're also realizing we may need to draw down some of that for whatever needs we have, whether for ourselves or for our families. So how do we balance that kind of approach with our portfolios?
Half of it is obviously about capital appreciation. The other half of it, fixed income, obviously generating about 5 to 6% yield on average. And so it's not just about your investment portfolio, it's also about managing cash flow. And so if you come in, walk into any branch, talk to our personal financial consultants to basically advise you a little bit better and specific to your needs. And obviously, we only recommend suitable products for your risk profile. But to a large extent, it's about managing cash flow. So because a lot of clients, they might have bought single line bonds, about 200, 250,000. Although it generates a decent income or yield, the reality is that when you need more money, you need to sell the whole thing. So what I personally like is bond funds is unitized, and you can basically get that cash flow, but also draw down in units rather than selling the whole thing. So it's about managing cash flow at the end of the day.
Thanks, Tim. Alex, let's draw you into the conversation again. Tapping on your actuarial experience and your perspective as well. Will there be certain underestimated risks that Singaporeans face, especially as we consider retirement on the horizon for us?
Okay, I think the essence of actuarial science is not that we are the fortune tellers to tell you that, okay, this is going to be like that, so you should follow a particular path. I think our role is more to tell you that, okay, this is the range of outcomes that could happen. And then based on your risk appetite, let's talk about how we manage the risk according that's in line with your risk appetite. So with that backdrop, I think the kind of risk that people have most neglected are not those that is already volatile. There's already enough coping mechanism that people are already using. The kind of risk that people most underestimate are those that, usually the situation is quite benign, but suddenly when it hits you, then all hell breaks loose. Right. So I would highlight two things. First, I think it's inflation. I think pre-COVID years, I think Singapore has gone through quite a long period of low inflation, such that when COVID hits and then inflation suddenly spiked, a lot of people are caught off guard. And all you need is just 5 years of 4% inflation, not very big numbers, right? Then suddenly you see the cash in your hand lose 20% purchasing power. And then you may have to be forced to downgrade your lifestyle and things like that. And looking forward, there are so many other triggers that may cause inflation to spike again: geopolitics, climate change, and supply chain issues and things like that. So people really need to think about the resilience of their portfolio towards inflation. And I think the second underestimated risk is that globally, the quality of governance is in retreat. Whether is it governments overly printing money, being not disciplined with their fiscal policies. So these are the more macro stuff, or failing to manage climate change together properly. Or the more micro stuff, which is like your neighbor's PMD battery exploding, right, causing a fire to your house. The receipt of governance can hit you not just because domestically you have poor governance. These kind of things can be imported also, just like the batteries example that I mentioned. Make sure that you have sort of adequate insurance to protect yourself against this kind of risk, not only in the traditional sense like your home insurance or fire insurance, but also in the wider sense, right, when you build your investment portfolio, whether do you have enough downside protection, right, such that if there's a tremendous market crash in the equity side, your lifestyle is still not hit that badly.
Talking about insurance as well, I think some of us may have questions about whether we are over-insured. Have we been buying too many policies and they're duplicating each other? Or are we under-insured as well? That was a recent question I asked my financial advisor. So how would you advise our friends here in the audience?
So first thing to demystify is that there's no such thing as over-insurance. Because when it comes to insurance companies' risk management, right, they'll look at you. If your life is not worth 10 million, they will not issue you a 10 million policy. So there's no such thing as over-insurance. But certainly, you could be spending too much on it because you have bought inefficient solutions. So that actually happens quite common, right? So the inefficiency comes in 2 points, right? One is the product is too expensive. Right, you can easily address that by going to Compare First or the MOH website, right, for you to compare the standard products that you need to have adequate protection, whether it's a term life or health insurance or long-term care. Do your research and compare and get the best or most cost-efficient product that you can find in the market. The second inefficiency is some people will say, okay, I'm already spending a lot on insurance. But the premiums that you have paid, you may not know that there are a lot of hybrid insurance, investment or insurance savings products out there. What proportion of that insurance premium is actually really spent on protection? It could be a range. It could be maybe only half of the premiums is really going into protection, the remaining going into savings or investment, or it could be even as low as just 1% going to the protection. So you really have to understand what you have actually bought. Then it goes back to the point about planning. So you need to know what exactly are the things you want to protect it for how long, and at what level. And then get a financial advisor to relook at your portfolio to see, is it really in line with your objectives? Yeah, then once you sort of rationalize your portfolio, I think it would already help you make sure that you don't overspend on insurance. And if after that rationalization, you still feel your financial is being quite stretched, then maybe you have no choice but to sort of reduce your budget on insurance and potentially leave a gap in your coverage. That's where the underinsurance concern is may come in. But when you're really in that situation, I would say two things. First, if you do have dependents, learn a lesson from the videos that you see on when you travel on aircraft. Right? When the oxygen mask come down, you put the mask on yourself first. Right? So don't stinge on your own health insurance or term life cover. Make sure that yourself is adequately protected. Definitely the payoff multiple is better than any investment or savings product I can give you. So that's the first one. Second is if you currently have health insurance plan that gives you private hospital entitlement, do ask yourself whether is that a need or a want, because the difference in premium rate is very high. And also consider the holding cost of the plan that you have entered into. And for that, I'll point to the CPF latest health insurance calculator or planner, where you can know at least for the next 20, 30 years, what's the total holding cost of the plan that you have entered into, whether you can really afford it, right? Then you may want to rationalize what you have bought.
Are there any penalties if, for instance, we are already locked in with a certain insurance plan and we want to like switch it down because I think it's it's just way too much or it's not meeting?
For many of those hybrid plans that does both protection and investment and savings together, in the earliest there's always some penalties. But once you have gone through that penalty period, then I think decision making should not be based on sunk costs. So that's why I always do your research, go to your financial advisors and revisit your situation and see if the penalty is not that bad anymore. Then you can sort of rationalize your current suite of products that you have.
Ariane?
Oh, yes, I would like to build on to what Alex mentioned about the healthcare insurance. So to share very briefly, right, in Singapore, we have 3 tiers of healthcare insurance. So the basic tier is the MediShield Life, and that's everybody is covered under MediShield Life. Every newborn, okay, once their birth is registered, they will be covered under MediShield Life. So on top of that is what Alex mentioned, the integrated shield plans, okay, that provide additional coverage. Because MediShield Life is more for subsidized treatments in public hospital, whereas the IP, integrated shield plans, are for private hospitals or the non-subsidized treatments in public hospitals. And the third tier would be rider, which has received a lot of getting a lot of news recently. It is mainly to sort of like to help the co-payment for the IPs. So one interesting observation that we have is that among members who have purchased IP, which is meant for private coverage, right? So when they are hospitalized, we find that about half of the members actually chose subsidized treatment. So they stay in, C or B ward. So what this means is that they are paying higher premiums for for additional coverage that they don't actually use. Yeah, so I think this is what Alex mentioned about not optimizing your insurance. Yeah, so again, as Alex mentioned, encourage everybody to check out the CPF Healthcare Insurance Planner. There you can compare the benefits and premium for the different integrated plans and assess for yourself whether you think your current coverage is sufficient or too much, based on the long-term affordability as well as what you really need.
Just to add on with you mentioned about the MediShield plan available already right from one who's born day one, right?
That's right.
Also CPF accounts, that's also available for our newborns. I mean, for those of us who are grandparents or those with young children, I recently topped up my kids' CPF account because knowing that it's going to be generating a lot of interest for the long run and he's got a long way to go. So that's going to generate a lot of interest.
I just did that last month also, yeah.
Yeah, so if you haven't already done so, if you've got little ones, start putting money in their CPF accounts. It's going to generate so much more. All right, so of course we can plan, we can prepare, but things don't always fall into place. And I think we made that very clear in the introduction. So what happens when, say we lose our job or when there's a medical emergency and we are, going to be bedridden, we suffer an investment loss, for instance. What immediate or maybe long-term strategies can we take then? Alex, since you're looking at me.
Well, I would say that it's all these situations are actually a litmus test of whether your existing financial or your original financial plan was done well or not. Because if it was done well and you have not overstretched yourself, you have a decently balanced portfolio and things like that. So all these adverse events shouldn't hit you that badly. But if it does hit you badly, you may have to replan. Then the question is whether was the original plan done up by yourself? If it was, then you ask yourself, are you still the best person to replan it? So be humble, right? Seek advice, seek help, professional help if needed. But it was planned for you by a financial planner. It's just that you didn't execute according to plan, right? Then you may want to go back to your financial advisor and say, hey, can you help me again? Okay, this time I'll try to be more quiet and execute the plan properly, right? But if the plan was wrong in the first place, then you may want to find a different financial planner, right? So in the process of replanning, of course, always goes back to the first principle, secure your emergency fund first. But in this situation, you may need maybe more than 6 months of emergency liquidity, maybe 12 months or what. Then make sure that you secure your insurance protection. If your protection is currently on gyro, make sure that your gyro is working. You have enough balance. You don't want to lose your insurance protection halfway through this traumatic experience. Only when you have spare cash, then you talk about additional savings and investment stuff.
Tim, from a bank's perspective?
Yeah, so maybe adding on to what Alex said, definitely is about managing your cash flow. And I think also it's about reducing high interest debt. So obviously, if you have a lot of credit card debt, a lot of unsecured loans, you want to pay that back as soon as possible, right? And essentially, if you come to any bank, we can help you restructure the debt. Maybe if you already have paid off your home, you can refinance your home and use that lower interest debt to basically pay off your credit card debt and your unsecured loans. Then secondly, it's about having enough insurance. From a death perspective, the general rule of thumb is 9 times your income, and critical illness is 4 times your income. So that is basically the 3 immediate steps that you need to take. And then to Alex's point, also relook at your entire life plan or your retirement plan to make sure that there's no gaps going forward. That's probably the 3 most important things that you need to do. Other than that, it's also, I think, about managing your expenses. Obviously, a lot easier said than done. I mean, last week, my washing machine actually broke. So I went down to Best Denki, and a washing machine costs about $600 to $700 nowadays. I was quite surprised because I think my last one, I bought it for just $300. But the Courts person actually, the Best Denki person actually managed to upsell me to a $2,000 washing machine, right? And so that basically is lifestyle creep. On hindsight, I probably should have bought the $700 version, but I think it's very important to manage your lifestyle, because that can really balloon things up and lead to really bad decisions that will impact your retirement plan.
I hope you use your climate vouchers.
Yeah, and I forgot to do that, by the way.
But still from your perspective, Tim, would there be any safety nets perhaps that you would be able to offer someone who is found in that predicament? I mean, not the washing machine, but the predicament of something just derails your plans, and they come to the bank. What would the bank be able to do for that customer?
Okay, so we'll be able to take stock of your asset and liabilities. And when I say asset and liabilities, it's not just financial assets. I think a lot of us have watch collections at home, whiskey collections at home, gold at home, and stuff like that. So in the worst case scenario, all these things can be actually monetized to pay off your short-term debt. And obviously, from a longer-term perspective, any of our financial consultants or relationship managers can help you plan to make sure that the investment products that we recommend fits within your risk profile. I think 3 years ago, I have many friends who actually lost a lot of money in crypto. It's extremely volatile. They didn't really know what to do. They had to sell their whiskey collections, their watch collections, and stuff like that. But essentially, the products that you buy need to be suitable for yourself, and not something that is too high risk, where you basically have to sell like your worldly possessions, just to pay your expenses.
Thanks for that. We will be inviting your questions in just a while on the Slido on screen. But before we do, let's get some closing thoughts and hopefully some advice from our panelists today. If all 3 of you could leave us with one piece of advice for Singaporeans in our 50s, coming close to that, who are feeling like we are a little bit behind in our retirement savings, what would that one piece of advice be? Aryan, let's start with you.
Okay, so my advice would be that in terms of the mindset, right, to treat retirement planning not as a set and forget exercise, but see it as an ongoing process that needs to be constantly reviewed to reflect your life priorities and the life later circumstances. So how you can do so is to also visit, like I mentioned earlier, the retirement payout planner and use it to review it regularly and reevaluate your retirement goals based on your later circumstances and see, where you are today, has the gap shifted, and understand what you can do to close the gap. Yes, and I think important not to see, any setbacks as, like failures or disruptions in your life, but really to see them as opportunities for course correction and focus a lot on what you can do moving forward to rechart your financial journey.
Right. Thanks for reminding us to review constantly because life circumstances change, our family sizes change as well, our circumstances change. Alex?
So I would say that when people feel that, I'm falling behind, they feel very anxious and they'll say, okay, I need to grow my wealth very quickly. People may enter into this FOMO situation and say that, okay, maybe crypto is growing very fast. I need to jump into it. But my advice is that before you get into any risky investment, do try to understand it properly, right? Don't FOMO, because otherwise you may end up digging an even bigger hole for yourself and you're even further behind, right? So do your research and yeah. Don't FOMO, yes.
All right. Tim?
I think when I talk to many clients, I think one of the major pitfalls is that a lot of us plan our retirement as an individual in silos. But retirement is actually a very emotional thing, and it's something that is a family thing. Because obviously, if my wife doesn't have enough money, I'm not just going to let her starve on the street. I will have to subsidize some of my retirement funds to help her. So I think it's very important to plan together, to talk about the retirement aspirations and lifestyle that you and your spouse want. It's not just about yourself. I think that a lot of us keep thinking it's about ourselves, but it's really not. And so through these conversations, the shared aspirations and values, it really comes out. And then you can put together a much more robust plan and go through life together, because ultimately that's what life is, right? To find somebody, family, and just go through that as a couple, as a unit.
If I could just add one more thing, because the team inspired me, right? So retirement planning is also about legacy planning. Yeah, to ensure that your loved ones are well taken care of when one passes on. So in the CPF context, we have the CPF nomination. Yeah, so the nomination, if you can nominate who you would like your CPF savings to be given to when you pass on. So it is important to review your nomination to ensure that it reflects your latest family situation. Just to also very quickly share a story. So I have a colleague, in the nomination department. So he shared that, there was once, a young man who came forward, and the young man was very, very distraught. He very upset because the father had passed on, and he realized that the father had nominated all his siblings, his elder brothers and sisters, to receive the monies, but not him. So he was really surprised because they had a very close relationship, and he would expect that he would also get a share. So my colleague then went to check on his nomination, and we realized that the nomination was made before he was born. Yeah, you see where I'm coming from? Yeah, so I think it sounded like actually the father probably would have wanted to nominate him as well, just that when the child was born, he had forgotten to do so. So I think this story drives home the point that it is important to make a nomination, and equally important to review it to make sure that it reflects your latest wishes.
Right. And also I learned a personal lesson about CPF nominations is that you may write it in your will, but if you don't make the CPF nomination, it does not carry any weight. So make sure that you make that CPF nomination as well. All right. I think we've gone through a lot of topics that are going to be, really keeping us thinking, and perhaps it's going to be bedtime talk with our spouses tonight. Given that Timothy says, it's something that we need to talk to our spouses about. Should we even draw in our children at these discussions and say, children, I plan to retire at 65. After that, you guys better make sure that you have a stable job. You're going to be supporting yourselves. Daddy and mommy are going on a cruise, 30-day cruise to Alaska. I mean, do we bring in our kids at that point?
I think it depends on the maturity of your kids and also essentially how you view your finances as a family. I think many of us may be stuck in the sandwich generation, right? When we are supporting our parents and also supporting young kids. So that's why I think it's super important to basically plan all our retirements to break that cycle. And I think that maybe our parents did not have that level of financial sophistication. Maybe investment products were not as good back then or widely accessible. But I think to me, it's about breaking that cycle at the end of the day so that our children don't have to support us. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. We will now be taking your questions. And we will be then posing it to our panel of guests today. Once again, a reintroduction of who they are. We have Pei Yen. She is Group Director of CPF Board's Communications and Engagement Group. We have also Alex Lee in the middle. He is an independent actuarial consultant, and he's got about 2 decades of experience in the financial services sector. And to the far end, we have from OCBC, Timothy Liu, who is Head of Investments. All right. So once your questions are in, we are happy to address them. All right, since we've got one, let's just take that one first. You can keep the rest of your questions coming in. How would you advise one to decide the choice of using investment-linked products versus using funds or unit trusts? Alex, this one looks like a question for you.
This one is a very hot topic recently. It can easily get cancelled. First, I think investment link is not just one type of product, right? There are actually 2 main types of investment link going on, right? First are those that is almost pure investment. That means on death, you just get 101 or 105 of what you have invested in. So those are actually more comparable to the unit trust investment. Right. There's the other type where on top of that investment component, you also have additional meaningful amount of life insurance or death or critical illness protection on it. So I think actually the more apple to apple comparison or debate should be whether you want to buy those investment oriented ILPs versus your unit trust. Right. I guess it really depends on what you hope to get out of the product, right? If you want to ensure that on death, you always have a backstop that you can pass on no less than the premium that you have invested into the policy, then okay, ILP is probably good for you. But if you don't need that backstop, indeed, there are quite a lot of low-cost funds platform around, right? Also, depends on your interaction with your financial advisors. So I will leave that discussion between yourself and your advisors.
Yeah, maybe just adding on to what Alex said, essentially is whether you need that downside protection, because for most ILPs today, when you die, essentially whatever premiums that you put in, you will get back. But for a normal fund, let's say, for example, during a down cycle, you lose 50% of the fund and you die, you're just stuck with that 50%. So it really depends on your personal needs at the end of the day.
All right. Thank you for that. Question specifically for Timothy and Alex, talking about over-insurance. And I think we did touch on that earlier, and both of you mentioned there's no such thing as being over-insured. Anything you'd like to add or substantiate?
It's just really about getting the more efficient product for the same thing. Yeah, that's because really insurance company would do what we call financial underwriting to look at how much assets you have and what's your earning power. And they would not give you a death cover that is beyond so-called what your life is worth.
I think insurance is something that is very personal. It depends on how old your children are, whether you have any dependents, whether you have pets, and stuff like that, whether you have any outstanding loans. So it really has to be calculated on a case-by-case basis. But like I mentioned just now, if just really rule of thumb is 9 times of income for death and 4 times of income for critical illness. This is the widely accepted industry definition and the general rule of thumb.
Question to clarify a comment that Alex had made earlier about needing 9 times income for life insurance. Is that 9 times of monthly income or 9 times of annual income?
Annual income.
Annual income.
That's based on the LIA report. Yeah. that they refresh every 5 years. Yeah.
Question right on top. Is there a good percentage of our asset to lock into CPF ERS to maintain good liquidity?
So I think this question, it is a personal question. So you do have to think about, what is your desired retirement payouts. And so if you find that you do need higher payouts, then of course, and you have the spare cash, then we do suggest that you top up all the way to the ERS. Yeah. So we like to see CPF as a foundation lah. Yeah. So if you find that even the ERS payouts are perhaps not sufficient for your retirement needs, and that's when you can consider other options like SRS.
Okay. As a self-employed person planning for retirement, does it make more sense to top up CPF special account or contribute to the SRS?
So as I understand it, I believe the CPF SA interest rate is higher than SRS. So if your intention is to accelerate your CPF, your retirement savings, the growth of your retirement savings, then topping up to the SA, gives you that ability to tap on this 4% interest. Yeah, and actually for self-employed, we know that often cash flow is immediate, is a concern, right? So I also want to assure self-employed that in terms of top-ups, it doesn't have to be a big amount. Even a small amount can go a very long way. So just to give some numbers to put things into perspective, if we top up, like $3 per day, okay, or about $100 per month, this amount can grow to $24,000 in 15 years. So this is quite a sizable amount, and $3 also doesn't take very much. I think it's cheaper than maybe coffee in some places. Yeah. So always remember that all these small actions can help to grow your savings reasonably.
Next question, do we include inflation, or do you include inflation into the retirement payouts such that it escalates as we get older? So we have inflation, but we also hope the payouts are inflated as well.
Okay, so maybe I take this opportunity to share a little bit more about CPF Life. Yeah, so CPF Life is the National Longevity Insurance Scheme. And under CPF Life, CPF members can receive payouts from age 65 onwards for as long as they live, no matter how long they live, right? So they are assured of, never outliving their CPF savings. And we understand, that members are maybe concerned about inflation, right? Rising cost of living. So under the CPF Life, we have several plans. And one of them called the escalating plan is one which is intended to mitigate inflation risk. So under this plan, the payouts will increase every year, and it will help you to ensure that you can keep your retirement lifestyle despite rising cost of living.
All right. One especially for Tim. Based on your experience, how much is financially safe when we hit 50? I think we did say it really depends on what our
but ultimately it's whether you have your primary residence fully paid for. If you have your primary residence fully paid for and you don't have any dependents to support, the rule of thumb is $1 million that will basically should last you your entire lifetime. But obviously, it's a lot more if you have dependents that you're still supporting, if you haven't finished paying off your primary residence. But that's just the general rule of thumb.
So be debt-free, in other words.
Yes, correct. Exactly.
Loan-free. So if all of my life we have lived hand to mouth, then at 50 we realize we don't have much savings, what can we do if we have to retire in 15 years' time?
I think it's about starting small. I think a lot of people, when they think about investing, they always think, I must have $100,000, I must have $200,000, and that's just simply not the case. Nowadays, there are so many fractional investments that we can do. On our side, you can start with $100 a month to invest. And obviously, when you're 50 years old, you have like a 30-year time horizon. You can put $100, $200 every month into a monthly savings plan that goes into buying funds, unit trusts, and stuff like that. And essentially that would set a good foundation for you to draw down from in the next 20 to 30 years. So I think the key here is about starting small and starting early. That's always the saying, right? It's never too early to start, but it's also never too late to start either, even in your 50s. Yeah. All
right, we'll take the question down here. Thoughts, getting your thoughts on the recent announcements on deductibles, the change in deductibles. What are the implications of the changes for someone who has an IP plan but with no rider at all? Alex.
For someone who has an IP plan with no rider at all, well, okay, maybe I'll offer a thought on this. So insurance is about risk pooling, right? Whichever plan you buy into, the premium would reflect the consumption behavior of other people in the same plan as you. Okay, I used to own a rider that gave me private hospital entitlement, but after seeing how the premium has gone up so fast, and also how people around me who have similar riders use their riders, I tell myself I don't want to pay for the kind of luxury that they are using. So I dropped my rider, and hopefully with the amount of money that I have saved, invest it well, and then I will grow the money enough to pay for the deductible and co-insurance going forward. So that's my strategy. So it goes back to the point of which neighborhood or which risk pool you want to be belonging to. So far, the rider premium has gone up quite fast. Do you want to be in that risk pool? It's everyone's calculus, right? Of course, people also may say that rider opens you access to a longer list of drugs that you can use for cancer. If that is your concern, you want to buy an option for that, then it's your call based on what you can afford. I don't quite feel that I need that, so I don't have a rider at the moment.
Alex, do you feel that the insurance market in Singapore is overly conservative compared to Hong Kong's for endowment products, projecting and guaranteeing much lower returns is the question?
Well, I would say a projection is a projection. I would say that it's important that beyond the projection, also sort of read up and research on how often the insurance company honor their promise yield to you. Then you will see whether the projection is inflated or not.
Yen, one final question for you. A question about whether CPF Life, can it start at 60?
No, CPF Life starts at age 65.
65?
Yes. Because typically before 65, most of our members are still working, so you can receive income from your employment. And by 65, you can start to receive the CPF Life payouts. Also want to share that for some members, even at 65, they may feel that at that point, they don't need the payouts. Could be a case where, for example, their children are giving them allowance. So if that's the case, members also have the option to further, delay the start of the payouts all the way to age 70. So for every years of deferment, the payout will increase by 7%, meaning if a person chooses to start at age 70 compared to age 65, the payouts at 70 will be 35% higher. Okay, but just to highlight that this is really an option for members who wish to start at 65, they can definitely do so and should go ahead.
So mathematically, it is possible for it to start at 60. It would also mean that by accelerating it to 60, it would the payout would decrease by 7 times 5. So it's like almost half of that income stream gone. Do you really want such a low income stream? So maybe that's why it starts at 65 instead of much earlier. Yeah.
All right. So even as we're considering the price of tomorrow, closing thoughts from each of you as for what we can take away as we think about retirement, as we try to plan our best for retirement. Closing thoughts. Alex?
Well, I would say that keep your plan agile, monitor the cost of what you want to spend on in retirement closely, right? Yeah, and also be in a more open mind that retirement doesn't mean you completely stop working, because if you really stop doing anything, your muscle will degenerate, your brain will degenerate, right? You may actually still want to be open to doing some level of paid work, right? You can even use that as a defense against higher medical bills from degeneration.
Keep dementia at bay.
Yes.
Tim?
I think it's not about how much you earn, but how much you save at the end of the day, and make sure that you prevent that lifestyle creep that I think a lot of us are kind of used to. So with that in mind, then that's how you can build your savings, your investments and everything towards a healthy and fulfilling retirement.
Ariane will wrap up.
Yes, so I want to give a shout out to everybody here, because the fact that you're taking your Saturday off to spend time here to learn about financial planning, I think it really shows that you're taking charge of your financial future. So really retirement planning is not about, what happens at age 65, but it is about all the decisions that you make or the actions that you take throughout your life journey. So CPR Board, we are always here to support you at every stage of this journey to ensure that, you write a good financial story for yourself.
Thank you. And that's a very apt closing for us. And we have come to the end of our conversation today on the Leong Form Takeover with powerful insights from our guests, Timothy, Alex, as well as Ariane, as to how we can ready ourselves for retirement in our 50s and beyond. This is part of the Price of Tomorrow, a financial wellness festival presented by OCBC. Thank you for joining us today.
The Leong Form podcast is brought to you by Double Confront Productions.
That's right, and you can stream and subscribe as well as scream all about it of our show on all major podcast platforms. You're talking about Spotify and Apple.
And we're also on YouTube, so don't forget to like the YouTube channel as well as subscribe to it. Make your comments there, leave everything, ask questions and all that. And we will also update you on the brand new episodes that will come along.